can Israel make peace with Hamas? Your chance to tell us why, please.
Well, absolutely not. Why? Because Hamas is not a political movement. Hamas is an ideological movement that wants to destroy Israel to build an Islamic state. And they don't stop there. Their political ambition, their religious ambition is beyond the river and the sea. They want a global khilafah. So how can you satisfy such ambition? The situation with Egypt, with Jordan was completely different. Israel has no problem negotiating and making peace with the Arab world. Since its establishment, Israel extended its hand to make peace with the Arab world, but the Arab world rejected. Then the foundation of the Palestinian narrative is sitting on air because, first of all, there was no such thing as Palestine. If you look at Palestine, it's only an ideology, a very violent ideology. And it took the PLO 40 years to try to destroy the state of Israel since 1948 until the early 90s, trying to destroy the state of Israel. Then they learned the lesson that violence was a dead end. And this is when Yasser Arafat came to negotiations, and Israel had no problem negotiating with Yasser Arafat. But what happened later? We had a new generation of Palestinians, Islamists this time, not the nationalists. And that's Hamas. And now they brought us back to square number one. And even Yasser Arafat and the other Palestinian first generation told Hamas, will it take you 40 years to realize that we're going nowhere? We cannot destroy Israel? And Hamas has been trying for the past 36 years, repeating the same mistakes of the PLO and Yasser Arafat. And Israel is caught up in this situation. Tomorrow we will have the communists coming. Then after that we will have more globalists and could be any other foreign entity using the Palestinian cause as a device to just keep trying to destroy the only Jewish state on earth. So bottom line, Israel has no problem negotiating with Arabs, making peace with Arabs. Arabs are an ethnic group, and we have no problem. There are 2 million Arabs living in Israel. They are equal citizens, and they can get along with the Jewish people. But the problem that we're having, that Israel cannot coexist with destructive ideologies such as Palestine and Hamas, because those ideologies are black holes, and nobody can satisfy their ambitions. If somebody wants to cancel my right to exist, I will never sit down on the table with them and give them any form of recognition. There is no dialogue with someone who wants me to cease to exist. End of the story. Hamas wants the destruction of Israel. They don't want the land. They don't care for the land. It's basically like someone entering the negotiating room and saying, let's negotiate. But after this, I'm going to shoot you in the head. So what's the point of the negotiations? If tomorrow you're going to kill my children, if the day after you're going to attempt to annihilate me, so then what's the point? Israel tried many times to extend their hand. For example, my father was one of those people in the prisons and outside the prisons, abroad, to find a common ground with Hamas. But Hamas totally rejected the existence of the state of Israel. The best they could offer to the negotiating table, a truce that is limited to 10 years. This is what they offered Israel, that we give you a truce for 10 or 15 years, but after that we don't know what we will do. What kind of negotiations is this? What type of dialogue is this? So you're building your argument on the false narrative of occupation. Okay. So this whole story of occupation and the victim mentality and why they are entitled for revenge and inflicting pain on Israel and destruction on a peaceful communities because they have been occupied. But then we say, did Palestine ever exist? No, it didn't. It was not a country. It's not a people. It's not an ethnic group. It's not a race. It was just a colonial entity created by the British. Then it was terminated in 1948 when the Jews had the right to declare their independence. They did, but the Arabs refused. There weren't Palestinians at that time. The Palestinians were Jews, Arabs, Druze, Christians, everybody who lived in that territory during the colonial era. All of them were called Palestinians. It's created by the British. It was not a country. It was not like an ethnic country, an Arab country that was called Palestine. So if this is the truth of the situation, then there is no such thing as occupation. Yeah. And the entire tale that you are building on the occupation allegation is false. I think your narrative is absurd because you choose to be in denial. I just told you that there was no country of Palestine. Excuse me, this is very important.
All right.
I admit that there are Arabs as ethnic group in that land, and Israel has no problem of negotiating and giving them independence. But the problem, every time they were offered a state, in 1948, in 1993, in 2000, they refused. There was no occupation in Gaza. There is no occupation in the West Bank. This occupation...
Mosab, let me ask you to get us back on point. How does this point strengthen your argument that Israel cannot negotiate with Hamas?
Look, false narrative, and this is, by the way, just a war of narratives, will lead eventually to violence. And when people believe that they are Palestinians, and we ask them why are you a Palestinian? What makes you a Palestinian? But they don't know how to answer that. It's just a syndrome. It's a mental disease. It's a mental illness.
Can you imagine if I said being Jewish is a mental disease? I mean, that's so offensive.
Jewish
what are
is
you?
an
You're
ethnic...
born a Palestinian.
Okay,
what are you?
Okay, Jewish is an ethnic group. It's a religion. It's a culture. It's a nation. Palestine and Palestinian is an ideology. It was born just yesterday. Judaism was born 5,000 years ago. It's the most ancient nation on the planet.
What are
you talking about? What is Palestine? What is Palestinian?
What are you?
I am an Arab. I was born in Judea, an Arab. This is my ethnicity. This is my language. Okay? Palestinian, this is something made up by Yasser Arafat, an Egyptian con artist.
Where do you want your brethren to go? Where do you want 5.5 million people to go? Do you want them just to stay as prisoners? Do you want them to be ethnically cleansed into a different country? What do you want to happen to them?
Of course, we don't want this. Israel has 2 million Arabs, and Israel did not have...
What do you want them to do with the 5.5 million Palestinians?
As long as they carry this violent ideology, we're going nowhere. I would like for the Arabians to remember who they are and drop this Palestinian ideology so they are able to see things for what they are.
And be Palestinian, you call it Arab, you can call it anything you like. But the bottom line is there's 5.5 million human beings there that believe that it's not that they believe, they do not control their own sovereignty. They don't have independence. They can't control their borders. They think they are occupied by their enemies, which is empirical fact. What do you want to do with them if you don't want to do peace?
You need to ask what they need to do in order to achieve.
Oh, we have to so they have to please their occupiers.
No.
Okay, let me please you oppressors of mine.
No.
I would love to, I'm begging you. I will pass all of your tests.
Cenk,
they need to drop...
have to destroy Hamas.
No, not just Hamas, all the Palestinians.
Well, no, my question right now is Hamas. And there is a distinction.
The what so-called Palestinian people, as long as they adapt violence as a way to achieve their political agendas, they are going to suffer. They are going to make others suffer.
You're talking about Hamas.
And I'm talking about not only Hamas, I'm talking about Islamic Jihad, Public Front, and 10 other gang movements that have been adapting violence against the Jewish people only for being Jewish. And as long as we have this violent Palestinian ideology, that includes Hamas, the Islamists, and the communists, the war will continue. The moment Palestinians drop violence as a mean to achieve their goals, then I think coexistence is possible.
My question was, if they don't, is the only alternative for Israel to attempt to destroy Hamas, and can it?
Well,
I
they
mean,
already
that's
did
their
that.
stated.
This is where we're at right now. This is where we're at right now, and this is why Gaza been turned into rubble. And there is no way around destroying Hamas. And I think if there is going to be any other radical extremist Palestinian movement that will continue to adapt violence and pose a threat to the existence of the state of Israel, then they will be eliminated as well.
Same question to you. Can Hamas be destroyed? Is that an achievable, worthy goal?
Yeah. So first of all, Mosab just said that as long as they continue to do violence, there's such an anathema to the idea of peace that we shouldn't even talk to them. Again, by that logic, no one should ever talk to Israel. Israel's dropped 2,000-pound bombs over and over. They've dropped over 100,000 bombs in an area the size of Las Vegas. They have been way more violent than Hamas. If that hurts your feelings, I'm sorry, but those are clear facts, not even close. They are 10,000 times more violent than any Palestinian resistance because, and I'm not saying that the Hamas wouldn't be just as violent, if not more violent. They just don't have the capacity for it. Israel does, and they execute that violence all the time. If we eliminate people based on that, you would literally never have any peace negotiations ever. And then the idea of Hamas has to be completely eradicated. That is a purposely unachievable objective. Who comes out and says, okay, Hamas is now officially done? There is no such thing. No one could ever say that. And you could see we had America, Egypt, Qatar, Hamas, a huge portion of the Israeli cabinet, even the IDF leaking to the press saying we're all ready for a ceasefire. The only people that held it up were Netanyahu, Smotrich, and Ben-Gvir. And so those people are saying, hey, you know what? I want to continue to do violence, so I'm going to make the standard that you can never, ever match. So how do we know if Hamas is all dead right now? We don't know anything. They keep making up numbers. They say, oh, we had killed 15,000 Hamas members. Then they went down to 9,000. Then they went back up to 14,000. So how do we know when they're all dead? And if you're trying to kill all of Hamas, well, you're going to have to kill a lot more than 40,000 Palestinians. Are we willing to do what we did in World War II, use nuclear weapons? Are we willing to firebomb as we did in Dresden and in Tokyo? That makes us monsters. Why would you want Israel to be monsters? Why don't you want them to have a beautiful independent state of Israel and a safe haven for Jews and a beautiful independent state of Palestinians? The idea that the Palestinians are the unique people on earth that cannot get to peace, that they are so violent, they have such a savage ideology they can't get to peace, is both racist and absurd.
So I hear Mosab saying that Israel really doesn't have a choice, and you're saying Israel has a choice.
Of course they have a choice.
Does Israel have a choice?
Look, what Hamas did on October 7 was barbaric, was a genocide motivated by sick religion. They attempted to ethnically cleanse a race, a human race. And this is a capital crime that cannot be forgiven. The situation to legitimize such a movement, give them legitimacy, and after that, in fact, to sit down on the negotiating table, then reward them with a state and political gain and financial gain. This is exactly what they wanted. Hamas, on October 7 in the morning, they killed Jewish children for revenge. In the afternoon, they killed Arab children, their own children. And by the way, this is a Palestinian practice to sacrifice their own children for political and financial gain. This is the essence of their game. And I am a living example. If you look at me, when my father had to choose between his Hamas Palestinian ideology and his own son, he chose the non-existential. He chose Allah over his son. And this is a living example to show you how these people function. They are willing to sacrifice not only 40,000 Gazans, they are willing to sacrifice an entire region religiously for something that does not exist. So with that said, Israel has no choice. It's not only about the children and the civilians of Gaza. It's about also the future of an entire generation in the Middle East. And I don't think there is a way around eradicating Hamas and removing them from power. We may suffer right now, and the Gazans may suffer, but the future will be bright without, at least brighter without Hamas.
Yeah, I mean, he did this ode to children, and I agree. 34 kids were killed on October 7th. That's heartbreaking. 15,000 Palestinian children have been killed.
They killed every child they found on October 7. If they found 10,000 children, they would have killed 10,000 children.
Okay.
It is not about head count.
Okay, so I'm not excusing a single child that Hamas killed, but it seems like you're saying, 15,000 Palestinian kids. So what? Israel had to do it. We have to eradicate Hamas.
Don't put words in my mouth. Don't put words in my mouth. And don't think that you hold the higher moral ground.
I do.
Those are my children. Those are my brothers and my sisters. And you are not. Don't pose as the one you care more. You don't care more than I do for the Palestinian children or for the Arab children.
All right.
The reason why are they suffering? This is the most important thing.
Mosab, and
You
Cenk,
don't mind that
Cenk,
Israel just murdered
one moment,
15,000
Cenk, I'm going to pull moderator prerogative moment. Let's just take a breath and take it down 10 degrees. I understand you're both riled because you both care about this.
Okay. So there is no need to take the higher moral ground. You know, here I speak on behalf of the Arab and the Jewish
Mosab,
children.
you've made your point.
They are
you've made your
very
point. You've made your
important to
point
me.
effectively and passionately.
I'm not being selective, and I don't need him to put words in my mouth.
15,000 children at a minimum are dead, and you're saying keep going.
Why? Why are they dead?
You're saying keep going.
Why are they dead?
So more children, thousands
Why
more
the
children.
children of Gaza are dead?
No,
Answer the question.
So it's not because of the Israeli bombs, right? Israel made, the Hamas made the Israelis kill the Palestinian children. It's always the Palestinians' fault. Always, right? You said the Palestinians don't even exist, and you say that you were looking out for them. You were an Israeli spy, right?
I said Palestine does not exist. I did not say Arabs don't exist.
Okay, but you're claiming that you care about the Palestinians, but you were an Israeli spy. And you said your father sold you out. Didn't you sell out your dad? I'm not saying you shouldn't have. I get why you did it, but you sold him out. He didn't sell you out. You were the traitor.
So basically right now you're just going on a personal attack. Let me ask you this question.
No, because I'm addressing what you said.
Okay, I want to answer you.
Okay.
If you had information about a suicide bomber that is about to kill people indiscriminately, would you report them to the authorities?
I didn't blame you for what you did. I said
answer the question, yes or no. Would you report it?
Of course I would report a terrorist attack.
Would that make you a traitor?
Well, it depends on the situation. But when you
right.
said that your dad sold you out, that's just not true.
Okay. I'm going to step in again because it has gotten personal. I understand you're both feeling it, and that's just not what we do here. We want to keep it on the points. So,
Wow. The entire foundation of this conflict is based on a false narrative, and the false narrative begins with Palestine. The most important question of this century, of our time, that we need to answer, everyone needs to answer. What is Palestine? We need to find out where did that originate from, and the Palestinian ideology, what it really means, what can satisfy it. And if the Arabs have been hijacked by the what's so-called Palestinian cause, the moment we are able to find the origins of this conflict, then we will find the answers. I don't think Israel has a problem with the Arabs as an ethnic group. I think Arabs, Jews, Persians in the region, then they can get along. The Jewish people can get along in every country. We have them all over the world. They are non-violent people, and they are very creative, contributing to life in every field. Now, the Arabs and the Jews can get along because we have a model that is successful in Israel. The Arabs in Israel are a very important part of the state. They are citizens of the state of Israel. They serve in the army. They are part of the social fabric. And this is a living example that Arabs and Jews can get along. But now, the Palestinian ideology, this is delusional. It's a very dangerous, violent ideology that kept developing to a very dangerous state. And today is the time for the world to question this ideology. What do they want? What's their agenda? What's their ultimate goal? Is it to build a Palestinian state, or is it to destroy the state of Israel? If we are able to answer these questions, then we may be able to provide a solution soon, hopefully, for this endless conflict.
Thank you. And that is a wrap on this debate. I